Hello and welcome to the January 2020 layout update for the Trent Valley Railway. In this update we'll take a look at the plans for the scenery section. I will then have a set of crossovers and a turnout into the container depot sidings. I'll discuss the introduction of DCC Sound to the Trent Valley Railway. So the first two locos which I've put DCC Sound into are these Class 37s, and I'll talk through some of the bits and bobs for the layout over the past month. Then the last thing that I've also got since the last update is some track cleaners. So Happy New Year, and to kick things off I'll just turn off the DCC Sound on the London Midland Class 350 whilst I introduce the layout update. Later on in the video I'll discuss the introduction of DCC Sound in a bit more detail. The first part for the update here for January 2020 is the scenery section and the work I've been doing to plan and prepare for how I may want this scenery section to look. And you may have already noticed, but it will be themed on a container depot. This is just one half of the scenery section, so we'll now take a look at the plans across the full scenery section from one end of the garage to the other. This is the start of the thinking for the scenery section on the Trent Valley Railway, and the inspiration here for going with a container theme is just outside of the Trent Valley Railway section on the West Coast Main Line, but this is slightly going to be based on what runs to and from Daventry Rail Freight Terminal. So I've got some of the usual suspects in terms of the different types of containers and companies that operate to and from Daventry, which you would generally see on the Trent Valley Railway. And then to explain first of all this end of the scenery section, on the right is where it comes off the incline. There'll be a scenery break on the right hand side, and those two lines coming around there will curve a lot more tighter towards the front of the scenery section here where the Class 350 is than what I've currently got there as just a sort of running line to test the inclines. At the back we've then got three container sidings. These are likely to be dead end sidings to use up the length towards the back of the garage, and the stacks of containers will then sit behind those three sidings with some cone cranes, reach stackers and some other type of lorries that will all be behind those three sidings. And in front of this will be the two main running lines in the very front of the scenery section, and the two main running lines from the scenery break then down to the other end of the garage will be electrified. So I will be putting up catenary for the section here, and the container sidings will be of some length because they'll come around about halfway to the middle of the garage. So from then the middle of the garage here, those three sidings will have some points in this area here and come down into one, and I will then have a set of crossovers and a turnout into the container depot sidings. I'll also probably have a small siding behind that for a loco to be stabled there. If it's come off the containers and has got stuck at the back of the sidings, it needs to then basically run out to form a future container service back out. But this allows me then to run in from the one line and then obviously then cross back over to run out back down the incline. Then in the background to this area, excusing the set of screws which I've tidied up, as well as all the insulation pipes which forms the barriers on the incline so that none of the rolling stock gets damaged. I've got, from sort of collecting things over many years, a modern office which will go in around about the area there for sort of the entrance exit towards then the 3 sidings on the container depot. And then, because again the running lines will be very much towards the front here, and ignore the running line that goes around the back at the moment, that's just, as I said earlier, for the testing of the inclines. You'll see at the very back, up against the garage wall then, are some of the buildings which I will put into this area here, because I'll have quite a lot of space up to the garage wall and the garage door behind here, where I'll be able to model the sort of distribution centre side of things with the lorries, the warehouses, and a sort of site entrance in off from a road, which would then lead up into the container depot up the top. So the very end up there would be the sort of area for unloading and loading containers, and then it would come down and then obviously feed into the distribution centre area before I'll probably put in an access to a sort of main road facility behind here. So I've actually got several of those low relief industrial units and also the modern warehouses to put at the back of there, but I've just got 2 for the time being, and I've got quite a lot of lorries collected over many years, as well as containers, so I've got plenty of scenery items to fill up this area. And that is effectively then a short summary of the plan for the scenery section for the layout, and we'll see how that develops then over the next few months for the Trent Valley Railway. At the very start of the layout update, you will have noticed the new introduction, which featured the 37s with the sound in them. So I'll now discuss the very start of introducing DCC Sound for the Trent Valley Railway. So the first 2 locos which I've put DCC Sound into are these Class 37s. So the DCC Sound TTS chips from Hornby. I've got 2 Class 37 chips which I've added in there. I've updated the speakers for enhanced bass speaker, which will also better fit inside then what are the Bachmann Class 37 shells. So if we turn on just one of the 37s, and that's one of the engines, and then I've put one in both as well, so that's the other one starting up there. And what I will say is what I've realised in doing the introduction to this layout updates for this year is that the sound may sound a little bit better in person than it does coming through on the camera. So if they just give a little short run off. And so those are the 2 37s. So I turn those 2 off for a minute. I've then also got the Class 350, which I've got a DCC Sound chip in there, which is from Lego Mambiffo. So if we just put that one on, this has a much longer startup sequence before it then obviously powers up. And obviously on this model the pantograph is more of a sort of positioned in whatever height you want. It doesn't raise automatically compared to some of the sort of newer locos that are coming out onto the market now, which do raise and lower the pantographs through a servo in the DCC chip and the functions. So once that is up and running, I'll leave that one to run off slightly, but this is just the start of the DCC Sound for the layout. You'll see these running around the start and obviously the end of the introduction and end for this layout updates going forwards. And there will be more, as we'll see in a minute when I go through some of the bits and bobs for the layout, more DCC Sound locos to come in the future. So if we just let that one then go, there it goes. So there'll be, as I say, a few more videos, and every month I will probably feature, hopefully, a new DCC Sound locomotive as part of the layout updates going forwards for 2020. Earlier on in the update, when I was discussing the scenery section for the layout, you may have noticed the Christmas box and a couple of things also dotted around, which are the bits and bobs that I want to talk about that I've also been doing, which means I haven't really been getting on with the scenery section of the layout, but I've been preparing for that in the future. So the first thing that I've been doing is changing out the NEM couplings that come as standard on most of the wagons from many manufacturers, and changing these out for the Cadee couplings here. These have the little magnetic bar coming down from the coupling, which will be very useful for when I've put together the container depot, because I'll then install these uncouplers, and as if by magic they will couple and uncouple with obviously the magnets underneath those parts of the container depot. The next part so I wanted to quickly discuss in this box of Christmas items is then this, which is the TTS decoder from Hornby. I've got two more decoders there, but I won't show you for the time being what locos those are for. You'll have to wait and see in future updates for the layout. But alongside that in this box, I've then also got a few speakers to particularly upgrade the speakers that then come with the standard TTS decoders. Obviously that depends upon your choice and also what decoders are putting into the various locomotives that you've got. Then the last thing that I've also got since the last update is some track cleaners. So I got these wagons from a stand at Worley at the NEC back before Christmas, and these have two weights underneath aligned with the wheels and obviously then the track, and they have two cleaning sticky pads which are then basically a cleaning type cloth with a sticky back on it, and you'll see there how much dirt these things do pick up. And at each end you've got a various coupler, and I found that already running these obviously in either direction for up and down the incline has proved very worthwhile for getting some good running and not getting obviously any stop start with some of the locos as they're running round the layout. So that's all for the bits and bobs section of this layout update. Obviously those will be used going forwards, and there'll be more on that as the layout progresses. Thank you to all the new subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and please do leave comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But for the time being, thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you again in the next layout update for the Trent Valley Railway.